Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification course. You can be seated wherever you are. Thank you for joining us tonight. Those that are on live stream on Facebook, if you missed the last class, hopefully you didn't, but we're starting a new book this evening, the Self-Control book. If you go to the top of the page on the Facebook page there, you should see a drop-down menu. Click on it, and you'll see a number of books. I think about the fourth one there that you'll see is the Self-Control unit, which is what we're going to be starting tonight. We finished the Acceptance unit, which is the second book in the line of 5 books here in the junior high series. There's something I want to probably, if I had to find one quote from the Peaceful Solution Acceptance unit that I want to leave you with before we move on to the Self-Control unit, is the following. If you could put up the first slide, I want you to really take this in. You should really write this down, circle it in your book if you have your acceptance unit with you. It's from page 23. It says, immoral negative character should always be discouraged. All people should be accepted. If they display negative moral traits, those traits should be rejected and the behavior pointed out. And this, I think is extremely fitting for tonight, because a teacher's job is to point out to their students, the things that they're learning. They're pointing them out through teaching. And, something that's very important for us to remember is all of us have negative moral traits within us that we're trying to eliminate. None of us are perfect yet. Okay? We want to be accepted. Okay? We want to feel, we don't want to feel rejected because we still have some of these moral traits within us. We're here seeking to get rid of them, right? That's the whole point of the Peaceful Solution, is to become the best person we can be. And how we do that is through the things that are pointed out in the Peaceful Solution. They're pointed out to us, and we should take the information and we should do all we can to improve ourselves, because that's all character development is improvement. It's improving ourselves, not only ourselves, but improving our lives so we can improve the quality of other people's lives as well, and our world as a whole. So when we start any book, we always start at the beginning, right? Okay, so let's look at the preface on page Roman numeral, looks like 15, XV 15. And if you recall from the other books, the character unit and the acceptance unit, there's the same prefaces there. But if you read each preface, you'll find some of the wording is slightly different. But for the most part, it's the same. And these things are extremely important for us to reiterate in our mind each time we start these books, because the influence from the teacher is what I'm talking about when I talked about the negative moral traits should be pointed out. And of course, we being teachers in training, we have to be extra careful that we're not just pointing them out through the book, but also in our behavior in the classroom and our behavior, 24 hours a day, wherever we are. We need to make sure that we're practicing these moral principles to the best of our ability. So it says, preface, influence on the teacher. It says, thinking back on my early school years, I remember many of the things taught by my teachers that were not part of the regular curriculum. It was those teachings that influenced my thinking. Many of them still guide my actions today. Now, this is the author, Israel Hawkins, speaking here. He says, I remember very early in my childhood, even before my school years, things my parents taught me that actually guided my interactions with others. And he says, one statement that I heard more than once from my father in the face of some frustrating event was, son, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Now, it still holds true today. Those are words that are immortal. They're eternal. They're never going to change. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Of course, I've seen some silly poster. It said, well, if 2 wrongs don't make a right, try 3. this is the attitude of the world today. They make light of these, but that's an actual two wrongs don't make a right. He was born in 1934. I heard that when I was growing up as well. I was born in 1962. And I'm sure it goes way, way back, even farther than 1934. But those words planted at the right time can really make a big difference. It can make a difference between fighting back, getting even, and retaliating and causing harm to somebody, or, those words playing in your mind that getting even isn't going to solve the problem. You can solve a lot of problems by planting these kind of thoughts and ideas in someone's mind. And in his case, his father mentioned it in his hearing. But what if more damaging words were mentioned? Like get even, fight back. I'll never forgive you for that, or I'll get you for that. He said if I heard those, he might have treated others differently. And never, don't think it's not a powerful thing. It actually is. Can you go to that next slide I got here? Here's a poster, a popular poster. Don't get mad, get even. See the doll with the pin cushions. I guess somebody was into some kind of, I guess they thought if they poke the pin into the doll, it'll hurt somebody. I don't remember what they call that. But then, you also have songs like Don't Get Mad, Get Even, right? So these things are prevalent in our society. If he had never heard, not to fight back, or son, two wrongs don't make a right, and all he heard was these kind of things right here, what about the next slide? You all remember the 9/11 event? We read about it in the character unit. Here's a popular poster, never forgive, never forget. And if you recall that event, I believe it was on the 14th of September, President George Bush went to the site of the World Trade Center where the workers were going through the rubble there. And it says, someone in the crowd shouted, I can't hear you. To which President Bush replied, I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock down these buildings are going to hear all of us soon. Okay, now, what could have been a really great teaching moment there, to teach that two wrongs don't make a right, actually turned into a cry for retaliation and revenge that the whole world heard. If you read the rest of the article there, it tells you everybody started chanting USA, USA, patriotic war cries to get even, to retaliate against those that knocked the buildings down. But there was no call for, why don't we try to find out what the problem is? Why don't we see, how we can solve this thing without anybody else getting hurt? Why don't we find out what we might have done to bring, harm to somebody's, to bring harm to them, so we can get to the bottom of how to fix this problem? Now, that was 2001. We're in 2022. What is that, 22 years ago? 21 years ago? How are we doing now? The war in Afghanistan, I think they just pulled out the troops out of Afghanistan, just a few months ago? And they left all the fighting equipment there for the army. All the billions of dollars of war equipment that was spent. We spent trillions of dollars in this war on terror. They're not done yet, but they pulled out of Afghanistan. And they spent trillions of dollars, and what did it get? What did it lead to? It's more retaliation. There's still war taking place. It didn't solve the problem. So he says, in my lifetime, I've seen many people retaliate, children, adults, and nations. However, I've never seen peace brought by someone doing wrong to another after that person did wrong to him. Teachers greatly influence our future leaders. And remember, when you're a president, you're a teacher. When you're the president of the United States, you hold great authority. Okay? And people listen to you. People listen to what you say. So when they see that you didn't use that opportunity to plant in the children's mind, hey, two wrongs don't make a right. Us retaliating and striking back against whoever did this, it's not going to solve the problem. It's only going to make it worse. Well, that teaching, the teaching that went out was to get even and retaliate. And now we have a whole generation, I think people that graduated in the last 2 years from high school, this generation of 9/11 that just came about, that's pretty much all they know is to get even, to strike back from what they saw right here. Never forgive, never forget. And each year it's replayed over and over in their minds how they should never forgive and never forget this 9/11 event. It says, teachers greatly influence future leaders. This means teachers have a major impact on the outcome of the world's future. And just a few words placed in a person's mind at a proper time can actually guide that person's thinking the rest of his or her life. And I can tell you right now, this makes a huge impact. You know, these words that went out from President Bush made a huge impact on a lot of young people to this very day. And it wasn't just President Bush. It was actually religious leaders crying for revenge as well. There was many people that were crying for revenge after the 9/11 event took place. You know, it was a pretty horrific event in America's psyche, you know, to see buildings falling down, not just the trade centers, but also the Pentagon got hit. In the Shanksville incident where the plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I mean, there was a lot of death that day and destruction. But does retaliating and getting even bring those people back? Does it restore the buildings? Does it restore all the people that perished in that event? No, it doesn't. Now it says, a morally sound, wise, caring teacher can help 1, 10, or 10,000 students on their way to becoming morally sound, wise, and caring adults. Reading the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program to students will greatly enhance their character development. Notice just even reading the Peaceful Solution, okay, to the students will greatly enhance their character development. By the time students leave the classroom setting, they will absorb and put into practice the wisdom and knowledge that can bring success to their lives throughout adulthood. Everyone needs direction, but the early teen years are those when children actually seek direction primarily from those outside the home. Most children during these years feel they know everything their parents know. Therefore, they'll listen more closely to those outside the home, thinking they're going to learn things from their parents or that their parents don't know. And I'm sure you've all experienced, some of you parents have experienced this where, you tell your child something and they just kind of roll their eyes, but then somebody else tells them the same thing you told them and they're like, oh, really? Oh, wow. And they're really interested and they show a lot of interest. And you're like, wait a minute, I told them the same thing and they just acted like they never even heard what I said. Right? Well, like it says here, they're primarily looking for and listening to those outside the home because they think they know everything at that age, and they think they know everything their parents know. So, but the Peaceful Solution, the author of the Peaceful Solution says, because the teacher is exalted in their minds as the one having the answers, the stage is therefore set. In other words, hey, if they're looking for answers outside the home, you as a teacher of the Peaceful Solution have a prime opportunity right now. Because they're going to listen to you, unlike, they won't listen to their parents, but they will listen to what you have to say. So you have a golden opportunity to plant these, words of wisdom from the Peaceful Solution in their mind and really make a huge difference in their lives. Hence, we dedicate these books to the teachers, the world leaders of tomorrow. Notice he's calling teachers world leaders, not just the president's a world leader, not just prime ministers and, people in high positions like that. Teachers are the true leaders of the world, because who's teaching all the presidents and prime ministers and people in those big positions? Teachers. They started out with teachers, beginning with their parents at home. So don't think because you're a parent at home, you're not a teacher. You are the primary teacher of your child, and you too need to learn the Peaceful Solution and put it into practice at home to make the teacher's job easier in the public school. Because, the public school, for the most part, are not teaching the Peaceful Solution. So you've really got to ingrain these things in your child's mind. While in those first 5 years, you need to really make the biggest impact you can, so that way when they go into the public school, preschool or pre-K or kindergarten, they have a big jump ahead of their other children, and they know about ownership, respect, the importance of asking, self-control, and honesty. And you can set that foundation at that young age. We have the curriculum to do it. We have pre-K, we have an early learning program, and we have a pre-K program. And you can contact the Peaceful Solution to get those books. It says, our children's lives and futures have been entrusted to you because we know you will influence them positively with your guidance. Notice that. These children are being entrusted to us. In fact, he calls it the greatest sacrifice. The greatest sacrifice is handing the children over to us to teach them these moral principles. So we've got a huge, huge moral obligation in front of us here to be teaching what we learn in this program every opportunity we can, not just from the book, but in the classroom setting, as incidents arise, and throughout the day as a teacher, as incidents arise, pointing these things out and constantly reminding ourselves and our students the things that we've learned in the Peaceful Solution program. It says, we are confident that they will be the beneficiaries of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Respectfully, Israel Hawkins, the author and promoter of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. So now let's go to the next page, 17, Roman numeral 17, the introduction. And again, we've gone through this before, but we're reiterating. Reiterate, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. We need to hear this again, okay? We need to hear it again. I know I need to hear it again. And we need to be reminded of certain things to guard against as teachers in the Peaceful Solution, which shows us in the introduction here. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Incorporated is pleased to introduce you to the most unique, effective, and practical character education program available today. You are holding a teaching tool that is guaranteed to minimize crime and violence, social disunity, and moral degradation in the classroom, home, and community. That's a huge boast there, isn't it? But you know what? It's true. It works. It will work if we diligently teach it as we're instructed here in these opening pages. Now, here's something we got to guard against. It says most people are involved in some kind of religion today, so when they express morality, they tend to be guided by what they've been taught by their churches, temples, synagogues, or mosques. This is something we have to guard against in public schools because of the present laws concerning church and state. And Chris, Catan, David, and other instructors that have gone out to teach this program in public schools can tell you right now, they will try to entice you. Many teachers will try to entice you to engage in religious discussion. That's why, I was kind of shocked too. I know in South Texas, where I lived for many years teaching the Peaceful Solution, they said, hey, we don't go by what they do up north. In other words, we teach morality in our school. And what they meant by that was they put scriptures on the chalkboard. They would put proverbs. Many classrooms we walked into would have a proverb written down, or some kind of scripture from a Bible. And they would actually try and engage us in discussion about those things. And we would have to tell them what we just read right here, that we can't get into religious discussion. We're not here to teach religion. We're here simply, these lessons are designed simply for developing children's character, okay, positive character. But we don't discuss religion when we're in the classroom, okay? So this is something we have to guard against because there's laws against it. There's laws against it, okay? Now, these lessons are designed only for the purpose of developing a student's character. They teach proper, acceptable character education in a way that will penetrate and change the heart and mind of a student or adult. Notice, or adult. Okay, it's not just the children. This program will produce the result in young people that society desires to see. It's kind of amazing, too, because if you think about it, you wouldn't think You would think only really parents desire to see their children make right choices, but there is a lot of workplace, for instance. There's a lot of employers that desire to see honesty, respect, self control. They desire to see their employees ask permission before doing something or taking something. They desire these things, actually desire them. Now, they don't necessarily promote them, and they're kind of confused in a lot of ways about how things are done, and in a lot of ways they promote the very things that they desire not to see. But that's only because it's not their fault. It's that they haven't been taught yet these basic moral principles that you're learning here, and that you might think, well, that seems pretty simple. It doesn't seem like it seems like a no-brainer, to write your name on your property so nobody, accidentally takes your property. That seems like a no-brainer, right? But how many people actually do it? But all throughout society, if you think about it, they even put serial numbers on money. I mean, if you want to get real serious about it, you could write, if you stashed all your money at home instead of at the bank. I know some people are afraid to put their money in the bank. Bank could go down one day. So they might decide, hey, I want to stash my money under my mattress. Well, if you did something like that, you'd be smart to write down every serial number on those big bills you got, because every bill has a serial number where you could identify that that's your money if somebody stole it. Have you ever thought about that? Everything that you buy has a serial number on it, and it's teaching us that we should mark our property so people don't take our property accidentally, or if they do take it on purpose, we can identify our property and get it back. But these are just like little small things that you think, well, that should be a no-brainer. Everybody should know it. Well, everybody doesn't. Okay? Common sense isn't something that's common. I'm sure you've heard. Okay, it says, these lessons are even more effective when the teacher encourages the practice of the principles of the lesson throughout the day as incidents arise between teacher and student or student and student. I remember the author of The Peaceful Solution telling us when we had a conference, a peace conference here, back in 2001, just before the 9/11 event took place, we had a teacher in Dallas, Texas that was teaching the Peaceful Solution in her classroom, and children were actually returning, staples they found in the carpet in the classroom. It made such an impact on them, what they learned about ownership, that they would actually take staples and things they found, and they would police one another in the classroom, and they would return these things to the teacher. Teacher, I found this staple in the carpet. It belongs to somebody, right? That's huge. That's a huge thing when you see children do things like that. And that teacher made a huge impact in the minds of her students. These lessons are even more effective. So it says the simple introduction of character education into your curriculum will greatly impact your students, causing your classroom to become the model others will want to emulate. I know that's a fact. I have a teacher in a middle school in Laredo, Texas. She was a science teacher, and she took 20 minutes every morning and taught the Peaceful Solution in her classroom with the permission from her principal. She went to her principal and asked if she could do it. He gave her 20 minutes to teach it each morning. They did a little power lesson. And within just a few weeks, the other teachers were asking her, what is it about your students in your classroom? Because their behavior is really remarkably changed. And she said, oh, I'm just taking, the Peaceful Solution. We're teaching it 20 minutes every morning before we get started on in our day's lessons. And it made a huge impact, not only in her classroom, but all the other people could see it. All the other students and all the other teachers noticed the difference in those students. So I know this is a true statement. So teachers are the true leaders of the world. All teachers now have the opportunity to make a great change in the character of their students. With the use of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, you are not only teaching, you are actually molding leaders who will use what you are instilling in them to bring about better living conditions in the world. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're molding well, you could be molding a president. Do you know if that person might be president someday? You could be molding the next CEO of a large company. You don't know the future of that person, where they're going to be 20 years from now. 30 years from now. But you're actually molding their character. You're actually shaping and forming their character. It's been entrusted to us to do that as teachers of the peaceful solution. Sometimes, remember too, it's easy to lose our focus on that. It's easy to lose focus on that. Sometimes the day in, the day out, the day-to-day grind, even teachers, they start to feel that day-to-day grind. And sometimes they wonder, am I really making a difference? These guys are still acting kind of crazy, right? But you can't, yes, you can gauge the behavioral changes or you can gauge how much they're learning by their behavioral changes, but don't think that you're not making an impact just because you don't see some kind of miraculous result overnight. I think I've told you before. They might take the one thing that you told them in the classroom. They might remember when they go to the store with their friends and somebody's trying to get them to shoplift. They'll remember that lesson that you taught about stealing while they're standing there in that store and they're confronted with that very thing. The teacher will be ringing in their ear. They'll remember those things. And hopefully they'll do what you taught them to do. But you don't know every decision they're making, even at home with their parents. When their parents ask to clean the room, you don't know if they remembered they remembered the lesson about respecting authority and they thought, yeah, I better clean my room even though I want to play video games or I want to watch TV. I better do, the peaceful solution. You don't know all the decisions they're making that are right decisions that you might not even see as a teacher in the classroom. So don't ever think that the planting of the seeds that you're doing is in vain. Your labor is not in vain, okay? Even if they don't start doing it right away, eventually you keep teaching and keep teaching, keep repeating, keep reiterating, keep it up. Don't give up because you're being tested too. We're being tested, aren't we? If we're learning character education, then we're learning to be patient. As a teacher, we have to be patient just like we're teaching them. We have to have discipline just like we're teaching them. We have to be disciplined and we have to be determined. We have to be courageous and not give up. We can't just think that, oh, well, I don't see any changes, so this is really not working. I better try something else. No, keep it up because you're being tested to see if you're going to keep it up, if you're going to keep trying, if you're going to keep caring and being conscientious about that child. Okay, so failure to build moral values in the students will not only be reflected in the child, but also in the entire world. Your leadership will be reflected in the actions of the leaders you have taught and will teach. So with that, let's turn on over to where it says how to use the program. The next page. And let me get my bearings here. Okay. So it says how to use the program. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program consists of 5 units for junior high that cover character, acceptance, self-control, respect, and responsibility. If you could put up the slide, we can visually see those. Each one of those books, if you'll notice, there's a little quote on the bottom of each one. Like on the character unit, it says, education is key. And then the acceptance, which we just finished, it says focus on similarities. On the self-control book we're now in, it says when peace isn't taught. Okay, when peace isn't taught, and you see the result, you see the crime, the violence, etc. On the respect unit, it says when your word counts. And on the final unit, the responsibility unit, it says fulfilling obligations. And it has a picture of the author of the Peaceful Solution there working on the Peaceful Solution, which is the greatest moral obligation any of us have right here, is working on the Peaceful Solution. Coming to these classes, learning, becoming better teachers, more knowledgeable, and then passing that knowledge on to our students. So each unit, now get this is a very important point right here, and I'm going to illustrate it for you here in a second. It says each unit is designed and formatted to gently lead the student with the basic concepts of character development to becoming a responsible citizen in society. Now put the slide back up. Notice what was just said. These lessons are taught, they're formatted, these books are formatted, each unit, to where it gently leads them from the character unit to becoming a responsible citizen in today's society. So that's why responsibility is the last unit. Because all of these combined are leading to that desired result of us becoming morally responsible and the best citizens that we can be in our society. If we skip, now get this, is very important too, because if we skip, I'm going to give you an example of how simple it is. You can take the slide down. If we skip even one page in the peaceful solution and try to jump ahead when it was designed to gently lead that person to understand each concept as it's laid out in the peaceful solution, I can show you, I watched personally how that's detrimental. I was sitting in a classroom in 2004, early on, and I had another teacher, student instructor, and we were on the character unit. We were actually in the Building Moral Excellence high school unit, and we were on, I think it was like page 4 or page 5, and we were talking about the concept of ownership. And the student teacher kind of jumped ahead a little bit and started talking about the concept of people being owned or people being possessions, like children being owned by their parents. And the student just looked at the teacher and said, I don't believe that. Children don't own their parents. I mean, parents don't own their children. He got really visibly upset. And they kind of started going back and forth, and he was trying to explain to the student, and I could see it was getting nowhere. It was like there was a wall there. The student was not hearing what the teacher said. Okay? The teacher backed up and just started reading from page 4, and when he got to page 6 where it talked about the concept of children being owned by their parents, he goes, you know what? I understand that now. I understand what you're saying. He understood because he got the rest of the information that was laid out there prior so he could understand fully that concept. That's why it's very important not to skip anything. Okay? Even you can't think that, well, that's not important. I don't need to really read this part right here. I'll just skip over that. Besides, they should know that already. Or like we're even doing right now. We skipped over all these pages right here. We're going to forget certain points. Okay? And each one of these points is building up to a certain thing, as we'll see. So back to how to use the program. So remember, these units are designed and formatted to gently lead a student. It's important for you as a teacher to work through each of these units in the order presented to obtain maximum benefit. Now, when we go out to school sometimes, we have to do presentations where they might ask us to do a presentation on respect or responding to disrespect. So we have to take, we might jump up to the respect unit and take a lesson out of there about, how to respond to disrespect. But you know what we always do? We pepper it with principles and teachings from the character unit and the acceptance unit, so they'll have a better understanding of what they're hearing about respect. You've got to give them a foundation. They've got to have that foundation of moral character. They've got to know about the moral character traits. Like, for instance, we'll tell them about the positive character traits of honesty, respect, self-control, etc. We'll give them that basic information so they know what we're talking about. We'll give them the definition of respect. etc. So it's very important to remember what you're learning right here. Work through each of the units in the order presented to obtain maximum benefit. The issues covered are very relevant to our young people. Take as much time as you can to explain the concepts, reinforcing where and when possible. You know, we've only covered 2 units of the peaceful solution so far. We're starting the 3rd one tonight. We started back in November of 2020. Okay? It's taken us that long to get this far. Are we in a hurry? A lot of the teachers go over these concepts again and again and again. Okay? You know, we've spent a lot of time on a lot of different subjects, and I know the tendency is to think, why are we taking so long? Well, how much knowledge, I mean, is there, the peaceful solution is a never-ending well of knowledge here. You know, we could go on and on. We could go years in one book. Okay? But for the sake of time and because we're trying to get you certified, we got to get through the books. But sometimes we're going to take a little more time. And in the peaceful solution, in the self-control unit that we're now going into, we're probably going to take some time on this, because self-control, as you're going to find out, is the foundation of the peaceful solution. You've got to have self-control in order to put it all into practice. The issues covered are very relevant to our young people. Take as much time as you can to explain the concepts, reinforcing where and when possible, and solicit as much student participation as possible. And then it goes on to talk about the teacher's manual. The teacher's manual contains 7 lesson plans, each followed by the corresponding chapter. So in other words, it shows each lesson has, you know, a note to the teacher. It has a lesson plan followed by the content of the chapter. These chapters are exact duplicates of the student handbook. Now, it talks about purposes and objectives of lessons. The purpose objective is your evaluation tool for what or how much the students should learn from the lesson taught. Most of our objectives are measured in behavioral changes. Please watch for these changes as your indicator of which concept might need reinforcement. And, you know, that's why, as you'll find, you know, we have the enrichment activities, as we'll see here in the procedure. You know, if you see that they're not understanding something, it's our obligation. A conscientious teacher is not just going to teach it and think, you know, well, I've already taught it and they should know. You know, they should know now because I've already told them. No, a conscientious teacher, and we'll see here in a minute about the word conscientious, how important that word is, as we'll learn in the peaceful solution here. We really need to take our time and evaluate each student. And other students, not all students learn at the same pace. Have you noticed that? Children learn at different rates, different paces. You can't expect the same results. Every child comes from a different environment at home. They have different, they might have certain learning disabilities. Not everyone's the same. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So, procedure. It says the steps outlined in the procedures are for flow and continuity. In order to guide the students more effectively, we ask that you read the procedures prior to presentation. I guarantee you, every teacher that gets up here to teach the certification class, we spend a lot of time reading the procedures. Okay, we have to. Okay, you have to be knowledgeable about what you're trying to get across in that lesson. Okay, and you can't think that I'll just read the content without reading the procedure and the purpose objective of the lessons. Okay, we can't do that. We can't skip these things. We've got to be conscientious teachers. So it says, ask questions periodically to be sure your students understand what's being presented. If your objective is not adequately met, repeat it and use the enrichment activities found in the handbook section of your manual to increase understanding of the lesson. Enrichment activities are also great for reinforcing the concepts taught. Okay, so let's go over to page Roman numeral 20. I got to work up to a certain point for the next teacher here. The student's handbook, it talks about the student handbook. Now, the student's handbook is a replica of your manual with the exception that the student's handbook has the answers in the back. So, the same answers that you have in your teacher manual, the students also have them in their book, but it's in the back of the book. Why do we have the answers in the books? Because we want them to know the answers, right? Reminds me of that teacher that the author Israel Hawkins said, he said, nobody gets an A in my class. Well, why not? Why don't you want your students to get an A? Don't you want your students to be successful? Don't you want them to know everything you know? That's what we're supposed to want. We want to impart this knowledge to them. We want them to be smart. We want them to be intelligent. We want them to be morally knowledgeable about every situation so that when they're faced with that situation, they're going to know how to handle it. And guess what? They're going to remember you, the teacher. They're going to remember you, that you taught them that concept. They're going to remember you. If you're the teacher of the peaceful solution to a student, they're not going to forget you. They're going to remember you. They're going to love you. They're going to learn to love you. They'll love you, okay? They might not seem like they love you right now because you're correcting them and you're pointing out things that sometimes the dirt on their face that they don't want pointed out. But you know what? Later on, they're going to really thank you and they're going to really love you for what you're doing. Okay? So don't be disheartened if you see, that sometimes, they might look at you all, cockeyed or whatever, don't let that bother you. They'll learn to love you. So it says, encourage students to read their handbooks before class so they can contribute to discussions or help in problem solving. The activities are designed to help students apply the concepts taught in real-life situations. Encourage students to complete the activities. There's a lot of activities in the book, whether they're crossword puzzles, etc. You can always encourage them, hey, do those crossword puzzles. Every little thing, every moment that you spend studying the peaceful solution or doing any kind of the puzzles or any of the activities, you're cementing these things in your head. These concepts are becoming part of you. It's not a waste of time. It's never a waste of time. Now, the role of the teacher as educators is extremely important that we understand the tremendous role we play in the lives of our students. Therefore, our participation in this program is essential to its success. I'm not bragging. I'm not going to brag. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to tell you a real life situation I just had the other day. I have a student right now. I had no clue that she was related to another student that I taught last year. Okay. And she said, do you remember my sister? And I said, who's your sister? And she told me who her sister was. And I said, that was your sister? She goes, yeah. She said, you really made a huge impact in her life. This was her sister. And I thought, man, I didn't know, I didn't even know they were related or anything like that. But this is what the peaceful solution, this is the honor that you have teaching the peaceful solution. People do not, this person she's 19 or 20 years old. She got in trouble with the law. She got sent to us by the court in Hebronville, Texas. And her sister lives over in Midland. They're not even in the same area. But word gets around. Okay, word gets around about the teachers of the peaceful solution and what an impact they make in people's lives. So never think that you're not exalted in their minds. You're exalted in their minds because of what you're putting in their mind. You're the one person in their life that's actually taking the time, okay? Their parents are doing the best they can with what they know, but you're the one person in their life that's actually building and molding and shaping their moral character. You're actually telling them what's right and what's wrong. Most people don't want to touch that. That's a touchy thing. They don't want to tell. They don't want to lose the friendship of their child. Well, guess what? You're being a true friend by correcting them and pointing out what they need to change. You're being a true friend to them. Okay? Now it says, as educators, it's important that we understand the tremendous role we play in the lives of students. Therefore, our participation in this program is essential to its success. Review the concepts every time a situation arises, not just when the lesson's presented. As significant influences in the lives of our students, we can lay the foundation to help them build strong moral character. There is a solution to the problems in today's society, believe it or not. There's a solution. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program has provided you with the necessary tools to make a difference to our children by instilling in them the values and morals they will need for a lifetime. I'm really glad that we're taught to go back over this again, because this should really, when you read this, it should really boost you up. It should really make you feel like you're part of something really important, because you are. Even though some of us haven't had the one-on-one teaching activity yet, just you sitting here and gaining this knowledge that you're going to share with other people, it's a huge, huge step right now. And you can't underestimate it. You're not wasting 1 second being in this class. Okay, so let's go over now to LP1A, where it says Unit 3, Self-Control, Introduction to the Unit. And let me get started on this. It says, we begin this unit with the realization that as a society we have done very little to conscientiously teach our children how to develop a positive moral character. Now, I keep mentioning that word conscientious and conscientiously, and I want us to have a great understanding of what that word means. So I hope you have your pens and write this down. Can you go to the next slide? That word conscientious, it says if someone is conscientious, that person strives to do what's right and carry out their duties. Conscientious people show care and they put in a big effort. They care and they put in a big effort. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be here right now. Okay? If you didn't care about yourself and you didn't care about other people, you would not be sitting here right now. Okay? So you care. You have to care. You have to care for others if you care enough to get this information to share with other people. But conscientious people show care and they put in big effort in doing so. It says being conscientious has to do with being careful, thoughtful, and decent. A conscientious doctor will do everything possible to help a patient. A conscientious teacher will spend extra time with students just to make sure they're learning. A boss hopes every worker could be conscientious. It's a rare and wonderful trait. To be conscientious, you have to be willing to do the right thing even when it's difficult. Sadly, many people aren't conscientious, it says. Okay? Sadly, many people aren't. But they can be taught to be conscientious. They can be taught to care. You can teach people to care. You know how you do it? Through the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Maybe that's why it's called character, right? Because it helps you to care about yourself and others. So, the definition of conscientious, it's an adjective saying characterized by extreme care and great effort. Some synonyms are painstaking, scrupulous, and careful. As an adjective, the word conscientious means guided by or in accordance with conscience or sense of right and wrong. Sense of right and wrong. Where do we learn what's right and what's wrong? Right here in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, we learn what's right, what's moral. What's moral is right. What's right doesn't bring harm to yourself or anybody else or the environment. We learn these things right here. We're learning to be conscientious. We're learning to be careful. We're learning to care. We're learning care. Look at the little poster there. It says, do what is right, not what is easy. Now, you think it's easy to become a teacher of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, to go through this certification course? No, it's not. But you know what? I see you guys here, and people tuning in. class after class after class after class for years, almost 2 years now you've been coming. That's huge, man. That's huge. You're making a huge difference and impact not only in your own life right now, but you're preparing to make a huge impact in other people's lives as well. And you're already doing it in your day-to-day interactions with people right now as a student teacher. Because you're taking what you're learning to your workplace, you're taking it home, you're taking it to the grocery store or whoever you interact with out there on a day-to-day basis, and you're putting these things into practice, and you're making a difference. You're making a huge difference. You might not see, you don't even know a lot of the things where you're making the difference. You might not know about it for years to come until somebody comes up to you and says, hey, that one thing that you taught me, man, that made a huge difference in my life. I stopped retaliating. I stopped getting even. I stopped getting angry. I stopped getting whatever because of that one thing that you told me. Don't deceive yourself into thinking that you're not making a difference, because you are. Okay? So it says, we have done very little to conscientiously teach our children how to develop a positive moral character. The urgent need to incorporate formal character education into school curricula has been forged by the increasing amount of violence and aggression in our schools. Now, excuse me. Excuse me. This book, if you go back to when this book was printed, 2003, this is 4 years after the Columbine. So it's the Columbine shooting, and it's going to refer to the Columbine shooting, which was still fresh on the minds of, and people were crying out for character education when the Columbine shooting took place. It says, catastrophes like the Columbine school shooting, where a total of 15 people died, are tragic reminders that we must make it a priority to teach every child the importance of valuing life and acquiring a positive character. Can you go to the next slide? This is the marquee at the Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. To this day, this was the marquee in 1999 when Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, on April 20th, 1999, came to school with weapons and murdered 15 of their fellow students and teachers, and then also themselves. I want you to notice what's on that marquee. It says, Columbine High School, home of the rebels. Home of the rebels. And you notice the rebel has a gun in his hand, right? Now, I'm not faulting Columbine High School. They don't realize, I told you a little while ago, we do things a lot of times not thinking anything about what we're doing. You see the gun in that rebel's hand? That simple thing right there, that simple statement, that simple symbol, that simple message that's being sent right there can actually lead to that next picture where you see the gun in their hand in the school lunchroom and all their fellow students ducking under the tables as they're shooting them. That's what it leads to. That's what it leads to. Rebellion. That's what it leads to. The guns, the weapons. And notice the two boys, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, laying in their pool of blood there in the school library. This is what it leads to. This is what these things can lead to. Do we want our children to be rebels? Do we want them to be rebellious? Do we want them to be this way? We need to be conscientious about what we're putting into their minds. We can't be sending our children these kind of messages and expect that that's not how they're going to turn out. I know schools don't mean to do this, but if you look at a lot of the mascots in schools and a lot of the sayings that are put out there on their marquees at school, very detrimental to the character development, the positive character development of a child. Extremely detrimental. Now, they don't know what they're doing, but it's being pointed out to you so you can gently let them know. And we've let them know. We've let certain principals know. If we've gone in schools and we saw certain posters that sent mixed messages to children, we actually would tell the principals. And we've had principals say, man, I never even thought about that. And they took the poster down. These are grown adults that said, we never really considered that. We never heard that before. Yeah, man, let's get rid of that. Let's replace it with something else. Let's put a peaceful solution poster up there, right? Let's put the STOP acronym up there, which you're going to learn about in this book. But I'm jumping ahead. Now, Columbine school shooting was a horrible event. But you know what? Right after that, can you go to the next slide? What about the Virginia Tech shooting? This was a college campus where 33 people were murdered. 33. This was like the biggest massacre in a school in American history. This was right after Columbine. April 16, 2007, the Virginia Tech shooting in Blacksburg, Virginia. It's horrific. 33 people were murdered, including the gunman there. Where did he learn? Where did he learn this thing with guns? Where did he get this idea? Remember what the author just said? We have done very little to conscientiously teach our children how to develop a positive moral character, but boy, we've done a lot to teach them the opposite. We've done a lot to teach them guns, violence. We don't mean to do it, but we've been doing it, and we need to stop doing it. We need to start making a difference. It says, in general, we have assumed that children will naturally acquire traits like honesty, self-control, and respect in the same way they learned how to walk and talk. We've also assumed that if we displayed positive character traits, our children would automatically incorporate them into their behavior. Sadly, these methods have proven ineffective in raising children with a moral fortitude to withstand those negative influences that bombard them from all directions. These influences have resulted in a lack of respect for authority, violence, and aggression, as well as teen pregnancies at epidemic proportions. Our high-tech, fast-paced society has in effect been providing character education for years via the television, video games, movies, and the internet. The question is, what kind of character are our children developing, and is it the kind of character we desire for our future parents, teachers, and leaders? Remember, there's two types of character education, positive and negative. We're choosing positive character education here in the Peaceful Solution. But out there in society, they're teaching negative character education, and this is the result. Virginia Tech, Columbine. And do you think school shootings have stopped? Can you show the final slide for tonight? Here's school shootings since 1970. You see that big, long line there? That's 2018. That's pretty recent. That's how many, there was like over 120 something school shootings in 2018 alone. So are we getting better? Are the children figuring this out? Did Columbine teach them anything? They're not going to get it on their own. We have to teach them moral character education. I know I'm preaching to the choir right here, but teachers that are tuning in right now, world leaders that are watching, whoever's watching that has any influence out there, you can make a difference by acquiring the Peaceful Solution and helping get behind this right now and start teaching the Peaceful Solution to your students. You can get behind it right now. Get behind it because it's the wave of the future, I guarantee. Now, it says, it is clear to see that we can no longer afford to leave the moral development of our children in the hands of movie stars, sports heroes, and negative peers. The truth is, for every positive example that is modeled by caring parents and teachers, there are 10 times as many negative influences that counteract their efforts. You as a teacher, you have them for 45 minutes or an hour. Guess who has them for the next 161 hours out of the week, or however many hours? No, 167 hours out of the week. The world has them. They're being bombarded with negative influences. You're the one positive influence that they really have in their life, beside the positive things that their parents might be telling them. Therefore, we must make a diligent and concerted effort to train our children if positive traits like honesty, self-control, and respect are to become an integral part of our children's character. Here's the great news. We can, through the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, conscientiously teach children how to develop a positive moral character. This can be accomplished by making character education as important as we do the core subjects of reading and mathematics. In the final analysis, what our society needs is people who are highly educated in both academics and moral behavior. This unit on the self-control was written to assist you in teaching moral values in a clear, concise way that adolescents can easily identify with. Self-control is one of the most significant subjects you can teach because it's needed in every aspect of life. Self-control lays the foundation for children to learn many other positive qualities, some of which include responsibility, respect, and determination. So I think that's a great point to leave off for tonight. But I want you to highly encourage you to go ahead and read through the next few pages to prepare for our next teacher, Catan, who will be picking up on lesson plan page 1B about midway through the page. And I really encourage you to really, take notes and continue to pay the great attention that you've been paying. There's a lot of information that's going to be coming forth from the teachers that are coming up. The next class, let's see, today is the 16th, so the next class will be what, the 20th or 19th? The 19th? Okay, so Wednesday night, 1/19/2022 at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please be here. Don't forget to get your self-control book, your teacher's manual. You've been a great class tonight, and you're making a huge difference. Keep up the great work.